Charles has been holding assets for years that legally, rightfully, and provably belong to his youngest brother.
The British monarchy has always been defined by its rituals, its ceremonies, and above all, its symbols. Every gesture within royal life carries meaning far beyond what the eye can see. A balcony appearance, a handshake, a seating arrangement at a prestigious national event, each one sends a message to the world about power, hierarchy, and belonging. And in the summer of 2025, one such symbol became the center of a controversy that has set royal watchers buzzing with questions about the future of the crown. What unfolded at Royal Ascot in June 2025 was, on the surface, a matter of seating. But beneath the surface, it was something far more consequential, according to multiple reports and palace insiders. Prince William, the Prince of Wales and future King of England, took a decisive and deliberate step. He reportedly moved to restrict the access of relatives connected to Queen Camilla from occupying prominent positions within the royal box at Ascot. What followed was a walkout that shocked those present, a silence that spoke volumes, and a directive from Kensington Palace that left absolutely no room for debate. To understand why this matters so deeply, one must first understand what the royal box at Ascot truly represents. Royal Ascot is not merely a horse racing event. It is one of the most celebrated fixtures on the British social calendar, dating back more than 3 centuries. The royal box is the visible heart of the monarchy's presence at the event. Those who sit within it are not simply attending a race. They are, in the eyes of the public and the press, being presented as part of the royal inner circle. Cameras linger. Photographs circulate globally. The symbolism is unmistakable, and it is deeply intentional. This is precisely why the question of who sits in that box, and who does not, carries such enormous weight. For years, royal tradition has maintained a clear and deliberate distinction between working members of the royal family and those connected to it through marriage or personal relationships. That line, once firm and unquestioned, had reportedly begun to blur in recent times, particularly during a period of significant change and challenge within the royal household. The context surrounding these events is essential. In early 2024, Buckingham Palace confirmed what many had feared. King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer. The announcement sent shockwaves through Britain and around the world. For the monarchy, it triggered a quiet but significant period of internal adjustment. Responsibilities were redistributed, public schedules were reorganized, and throughout this difficult chapter, Queen Camilla stepped forward with admirable composure, supporting her husband while maintaining a visible and steady royal presence that earned her widespread respect and admiration. During this period of adjustment, something else was also quietly taking place. Members of Queen Camilla's extended family began appearing with greater regularity at notable royal events. Figures connected to the Queen through her personal relationships, rather than through any official royal role or constitutional position, were increasingly seen at high-profile occasions. For many observers, this seemed like a natural and even touching reflection of a family rallying together during a time of uncertainty. Blended families, modern relationships, and human warmth, it could be argued, have their place even within the formality of royal life. But for others watching from within royal circles, a different concern was quietly taking shape. The worry, as insiders have described it, was not rooted in personal animosity. It was rooted in precedent. In the world of monarchy, what is permitted once can quickly become what is expected always. Appearances that begin as informal gestures of inclusion can, over time, harden into assumptions of entitlement. And assumptions of entitlement, when they involve some of the most symbolically charged spaces in British public life, carry institutional consequences that extend far beyond any individual relationship. It was against this backdrop that Royal Ascot 2025 arrived, and with it, a moment that would crystallize the tension that had been building behind palace walls for months. The Princess of Wales was notably absent from the event. Catherine had spent much of the preceding year stepping back from public duties while focusing on her personal health and recovery. Her absence from Ascot was felt keenly, both by the public who admire her and by those within royal circles who understand the symbolic significance of her presence alongside William. She had spent years earning her position at the heart of the institution through dedicated service, genuine connection with the public, and quiet but unwavering commitment to the crown. Her absence left a visible gap. What reportedly struck William so forcefully at Ascot was not simply that Camilla's relatives were present. It was their visibility. They were not quietly seated in peripheral positions. According to reports, they occupied prominent spaces within the royal box, some of the most sought-after and publicly visible seats at one of the most watched social occasions in the British calendar. For those who understood the symbolic grammar of royal life, the contrast was jarring. The Princess of Wales, a future queen who had given years of tireless service to the institution, was absent due to a deeply personal health struggle. Yet the visual space she would normally help to define appeared occupied by individuals who held no official royal role and no constitutional position within the monarchy. The atmosphere inside the royal box on that day has been described by those with knowledge of events as tense and unusual. There was no dramatic confrontation. There were no raised voices, no public accusations, no moment that cameras could capture as obvious conflict. What there was, according to insiders, was a different kind of statement. William grew still. Conversations around him reportedly faded, and then, without announcement or explanation, he turned and walked away. He did not simply step out for a moment. He left the event entirely, hours before anyone expected his departure. For a senior member of the royal family attending one of the most prestigious fixtures on the national calendar, an early and unexplained exit is itself a seismic event. It generates exactly the kind of attention and speculation that royal households spend enormous energy trying to prevent. The image that had been carefully arranged for public consumption was suddenly secondary to a single burning question. Why had he left? The palace machinery moved quickly. Explanations were offered quietly in the hours and days that followed. References were made to scheduling pressures, to the natural demands of a busy royal calendar, to simple misunderstandings about timing. But those close to the situation have suggested that these explanations were received with considerable skepticism inside royal circles. The timing of the departure and the circumstances surrounding it were simply too pointed to be dismissed as coincidence or logistical inconvenience. What is particularly striking about William's response is what he chose not to do. He issued no public statement. He gave no interviews. He made no comments through official channels that could be directly tied to the Ascot episode. In a world where every royal utterance is analyzed, parsed, and debated, his silence was itself a form of communication. It created a vacuum that others rushed to fill with speculation, while he retained complete control of his own position simply by refusing to define it publicly. It was a masterclass in royal restraint, and it appeared entirely deliberate. Behind the scenes, however, things were far from quiet. According to reports from within royal circles, conversations were taking place across households as senior aides and advisors worked to understand the implications of what had occurred. And it did not take long for a clearer picture to emerge. Kensington Palace, the household of the Prince and Princess of Wales, issued what has been described by insiders as an absolute and final directive. The message, reportedly delivered early one morning and described as brooking no argument, made the position of the future king unmistakably clear. The directive concerned access to the royal box at Ascot and similar prestigious royal settings. The position, as communicated by William's team, was not framed as a personal judgment or a family dispute. It was framed as a matter of institutional principle. The royal box is not merely a comfortable viewing area for a popular annual event. It is a space where constitutional meaning and public symbolism intersect. Presence within it implies a degree of royal standing that is not and should not be available to those who hold no official role within the monarchy, regardless of their personal connections to members of the royal family. The logic is grounded in the very foundations of how constitutional monarchy operates. Working members of the royal family occupy their positions through birth, marriage, and the formal assumption of public duties. They are accountable to the institution, to Parliament, and to the public in ways that extended family members connected through personal relationships simply are not. allowing the latter group to occupy spaces traditionally reserved for the former, risks creating confusion, not only in the public mind, but within the internal culture of the palace itself. Insiders have noted that Queen Camilla's relatives are not working royals. They carry no official duties. They do not represent the crown at formal engagements. They do not appear in the line of succession. Their earlier appearances in prominent royal settings reflected, as one source described it, a period when the enforcement of long-standing boundaries was less rigid than it had historically been. This was understandable in context. The royal family was navigating King Charles's illness, adjusting to new responsibilities, and managing an unprecedented level of public scrutiny. Some informal flexibilities crept in that might not, under different circumstances, have been permitted. But informality, left unchecked, becomes the new norm. And William, it now appears, decided with considerable firmness that this particular norm was not one he was prepared to allow to solidify on his watch. What gives the situation additional layers of significance is the role of Catherine in all of this. During the period of her absence from public duties, some observers had quietly speculated that her withdrawal had created a degree of openness or uncertainty within the Wales household that might allow for different influences to take hold. Those assumptions, if they ever had any foundation, have been comprehensively dispelled by Catherine's return to public life. Palace sources consistently describe the Princess of Wales not merely as supportive of her husband's position on these matters, but as actively engaged in shaping and reinforcing it. This is a significant detail. Catherine has long been portrayed in the public imagination as the warm, diplomatic, emotionally intelligent member of the Wales partnership. That portrayal contains truth. But it has sometimes obscured a different truth, which is that she is also a woman of considerable conviction, who understands the institution she will one day help to lead with remarkable clarity and seriousness of purpose. The image of William and Catherine presenting a united front on questions of royal boundaries is not, according to those familiar with the situation, a piece of carefully managed public relations. It is an accurate reflection of where both of them genuinely stand, and that unity makes their position considerably more powerful than it would be if even the hint of a gap between them existed for others to explore. The broader significance of these events extends beyond Ascot and beyond the specific question of Camilla's relatives. What is emerging from Kensington Palace is the outline of a philosophy of monarchy, a vision of what the institution should be and how it should conduct itself as it moves toward a new reign. And that vision is, in important respects, at odds with a competing perspective that has been quietly influential within the wider royal household in recent years. There are those within and around the palace who believe that the monarchy's long-term survival depends on its becoming more open, more human, and more emotionally accessible to the public it serves. In this view, rigid boundaries and strict hierarchies are relics of a different era. They create distance where connection is needed. They project coldness where warmth would serve the institution better. Extended family involvement in this vision is a feature rather than a bug. It makes the royal family feel more recognizably like a family, and by extension, more relatable to the millions of people whose support and goodwill it depends upon. William's approach, as it is becoming increasingly visible, reflects a fundamentally different analysis. He appears to believe, with evident conviction, that the monarchy's enduring strength derives precisely from the clarity and discipline of its structure. The crown commands respect not because it is familiar, but because it is exceptional. Its power rests on mystery, on hierarchy, on the clear and consistent maintenance of distinctions that separate it from ordinary life. When those distinctions erode, even gradually, and with the best of intentions, they take something irreplaceable with them. This does not mean a monarchy that is cold or indifferent to public sentiment. William and Catherine have demonstrated, through years of public service and genuine engagement, that warmth and connection are entirely compatible with structural discipline. Modern tools of communication, social media, public appearances, and carefully crafted messaging can serve as bridges between the crown and the people without requiring any fundamental alteration to the institutional architecture that gives the monarchy its authority. What the events of Ascot 2025 ultimately represent, viewed through this lens, is something more than a seating dispute or a family disagreement. They represent a moment of definition, a future king making clear, through action rather than words, what kind of institution he intends to lead. The message delivered from Kensington Palace that morning was described as final. There was no invitation for further negotiation, no suggestion that public pressure or family discomfort might soften the position. The boundary had been drawn, and it would hold. In royal history, such moments of definition often look small from the outside. A departure at an afternoon event, a directive about a seating arrangement, a silence where a statement might have been expected. But history consistently reveals that the small moments are where the character of reigns is first established. The choices made in private, before the full weight of the crown has been assumed, tell us more about the future than any ceremonial speech or public proclamation ever could. King Charles III remains on the throne. His resilience in the face of illness has been genuinely remarkable, and his reign continues with the dedication that has characterized his entire life of public service. But within the palace, a transition is already taking shape, not formally, not officially, but in the daily rhythm of decisions, directives, and the quiet accumulation of moments that define authority. Prince William is not waiting for a formal coronation to begin shaping the monarchy he will one day lead. He is doing it now, thoughtfully, deliberately, and with a patience and precision that suggests careful long-term thinking rather than impulsive reaction. The events at Ascot and the firm response that followed them are part of a larger pattern that those watching closely are beginning to recognize with increasing clarity. The crown is evolving, its traditions are being reaffirmed, its boundaries are being restored, and at the center of that quiet but consequential process stands a future king who has made his vision unmistakably clear, not through speeches or announcements, but through the language that has always mattered most within the walls of the palace, the language of action, precedent, and an unflinching commitment to the institution he was born to serve and will one day be called upon to lead. In a monarchy where every gesture carries meaning and every silence speaks volumes. The message from Kensington Palace in the summer of 2025 was perhaps the clearest of all. The future has a shape, and it is being built quietly and deliberately right now.